Hello there everyone, how's it going? It is I, Baby Crone, and I have returned again yet another week to talk about science and trees and time, because we are revisiting time this week. So last week, to briefly recap on why I'm talking about trees and time yet again this week. Last week, a key recap I would like to talk about is the fact that daylight savings time, at least here in the US, is being stopped. It's being put to a stop starting as of next year, 2023. And that brought me, because a subscriber, a munchkin, had asked us.
It was me who asked you.
Oh, it was the old crone that had asked me about the time and wanted to know more and understand why time is so important. Because here I'm going to talk about, is it possible to live on 13 months a year? Because I'm starting to realize there's a correlation between 13, yet we're not including 13 in our everyday life. So, to begin the story, let's start with, where did the idea of 13 months begin? It was proposed by a guy named Auguste Coumet. I believe he was French, and he created the idea in 1849. And he was a positivist, which means he believed in the natural world and not the supernatural. So therefore he was using the physical stars and anatomy to correlate and understand time. So instead of time being an imagination and made up by humans, he was going to go and use the sun and moon to track time that way. And he created a 13th month calendar where there was exactly 14 weeks. Exactly 4 weeks. And each of those 4 weeks altogether will equal 28 days, and altogether that will be 13 months in a year, and 1 year altogether will add up to 364 days. Now I know you're asking, isn't a year 365 days? Yes, and this is our problem, and there's a reason why they changed the time and made a year 365 days rather than 664 days. So to begin, we have the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar we are currently using today, and this is a solar calendar. Now I will go into it a little bit later on what the different types of calendars are. This is, to be exact, this one is a solar calendar, and it follows the sun's path. Now the sun goes through 12, or quote unquote 13 zodiacs, as I will talk about shortly. These 13 zodiac signs are on the path that the sun passes, that they call the ecliptic. And this is how we know, like, once 1 year is over, we'll be back to the same zodiac sign, and that's how we know when a full year has happened, which means the earth has rotated around the sun in a complete year. The old calendar that we used to have was the Julian calendar, and that was changed, and that was what we used before 1582. And the Julian calendar also had 364 days in a year, but the problem is that they had to add 10 days extra, and this was randomly throughout the year to make sure there was the total amount of days, because without these 10 days there was 355 days in the year, and this didn't accurately follow the sun's path, so therefore time wasn't adding up, seasons weren't adding up correctly, because 1 year spring might start March 21st, and then the next year spring will start March 30th. and it was never consistent because of these days and times. So that's why the Gregorian calendar that we're using today is much more accurate and follows the seasons correctly, because they were able to accurately map out the sun's path, because as years go on, technology and tools that we use to understand the world around us grows and advances. Now, why am I so obsessed about the number 13? Well, I started learning when I started coming onto this channel and talking about trees. I did not know I was in for a tree alert about learning so many different things about trees, and learning that really everything connects. Everything you learn in the esoteric world, even though it doesn't seem like it has a correlation, you're going to find later down the line that it connects to something you learned. So the 13 Celtic tree months. So we have the 13 Celtic tree months, and that's number 13. And even though there was never really 13 months, this is what they used in order to calculate the time and seasons. And even though the 13th month may have not had a full month, it may be 5 or 6 extra days, it was to account for why the time wasn't adding up in the months. And then we have the 13 zodiac signs. And there's a 13th zodiac that was cut out in the beginning of time when astrology was being created, because they didn't like the number 13 because they saw it as an unlucky number and it brought bad luck, which is why you don't see 13 in these numbers that I'm talking about today. And we have also, to give a little bit more proof, in the tarot deck, the 13th card in the major arcana is death. But death doesn't always mean a literal death. It means something has to die. Something old has to die in order for something new and different and transformative to grow. And therefore, if you look at it in that sense, it's a really powerful number. Then that brings us to the number 13 and the superstition. And that's why they didn't want to have 13 months. They didn't want to have 13 zodiac signs. And when you add up the number 364, it adds up to the number 13, and therefore they didn't like that number, because in numerology there are numbers, an essence of numbers, so that number made them feel uneven and unlucky, and they didn't want their year or lives to live out that way. So that way they added an extra day and made it 365 days. And when you add up that number, it's a 14, and it's not a bad number, so they were pleased. And here's something very interesting. Ethiopia lives on the 13th month calendar system. They have their own calendar system that they live on, and apparently they are 7 years behind. So I don't know how that works. Again, time is relative. Apparently here it is 2022. In Ethiopia it is 2014 or something like that, if I'm doing my math correctly. Hey, go for you, Ethiopia. I don't know what to say about that really, other than there are countries that live out there that follow this system. So, the 3 different types of calendars is a solar calendar, which follows the path of the sun, and this gives you the seasons and tells you the time between the vernal equinox, and that's when spring starts, and that tells you when the new year begins. There's a lunar calendar, and that follows the phases of the moon, and that's a second way to track time, and this tells you how to do rituals because you're following the moon's path and energy. Then the third calendar is putting the two together and having a lunar solar calendar, which tracks both the sun and the moon's path an entire year. So what part of the moon year are you in while you're in the sun year? And that's what the two will tell you together. So in the olden days, the lunar solar calendars were used in the Middle East, Egypt, and Greece. Today, lunar solar calendars are used by China and Jerusalem. And the Jews, they have 12 months, not 13, but these 12 months alternate between 29 days and 30. And this is because if you're following the moon path, the moon cycles, I did this in a calendar. I marked out 4 months, and a moon month is anywhere between 29 days and 30 days, depending how many days are in a month. So therefore, it's not really a myth that a moon month or a moon cycles 28 days. It's just slightly off in 29 days. And theoretically, if we have 29 days in a month and 364 days in a total year, we will have 12 months in total. So therefore, we can still have 12 months and not have 365 days. Even though there's an extra day missing, we're following the moon in that sense. So is there really a problem with us following 13 months, quote unquote? And another fun fact, if you think about it, February I like to call the moon month because it has 28 days, and on a leap year it has 29 days. And on most, at least in China, but in a calendar I have, there's a lunar new year starting somewhere in the beginning of February. So that also signifies that February is a moon month. So to wrap it all up and answer the question, can we live on a 13th month year? Yes, we could, but mathematically we would have problems, especially when looking at a circle. I will put pictures right here to show you how dividing 13, especially because 13 is an uneven number, you can't divide it evenly. So therefore, one quadrant or like one section will have one extra slice, if you think about it, that it shouldn't have, and it's just like kind of crammed. So therefore, it's kind of hard to work with astrology in that sense, and having 13 houses instead of 12. So that, in a sense, is why we also have 12 zodiac signs, because it fits nicely within a circle. So thank you, and hopefully you understand, munchkins. Hopefully you munchkins, our munchkins, understand time just a little bit more, and understand that there can be 13 months, and all this time that they're doing and messing around, I now know that it is the Roman Catholics, and they were changing Julius Caesar, and the French and all there in Europe had hands and mixtures into mixing with time because of religious reasons. And really, in the end, you can find this information with just searching, and it can be complicated because you have to do some math here and there because it's all based on math. So with that, I would like to thank you, my munchkins, for enjoying my session and coming to sit with me today. Hopefully I will be back on Friday with the old crone to talk about hot topics. And I can't wait to talk to you guys, because Baby Crone has some things she wants to talk about, because I like to gossip, and I'm enjoying hot topics a little bit and putting my little 2 cents into celebrities' business. So with that being said, I will talk to you guys later and in the next video. Bye!
See you on the brown round.
Yes, see you on the brown round. Subscribe.